come a little closer and lend me your ears. Don't worry, you keep yours while I keep mine.
In each episode, we'll dig into the major stories, uncover the truth, and retrieve gems from Yada's blog.
We'll discuss what's right, bark about what's wrong, wag our tails at the thrill of discovery, and take you on adventures through the exciting world we live in today. So, fasten your curiosity leash and get ready.
Right then, coming to you with another episode of the Yada's Vlog on a Blog. Tomorrow's news, disseminated today. Let's dive in.
Yes, indeed. Let's dive right in. We do have the Wookiee with us today. Maybe he'll do a prance around on the top of the desk. Good to see you, Roger. Always a pleasure to have you as part of the vlog on the blog. We're going to jump right in with, I think, a lot of cerebral posts today. A lot of things that will help stimulate discussion. So this is a post. It is attempting to show the building of what is actually the Teba. Teba means a vessel of insights pursuant to a harvest. So it's a very interesting term. We have been hoodwinked into using Ark because of the Roman Catholic Church and the fact that Ark is the Latin word for big box. So it is a horrible term to describe this. Teba is a very telling term, and it speaks of a vessel of insights pursuant to a harvest. I don't want to make a big deal about the fact that the picture is completely wrong. Look at all the people standing there, and the number of people working on top of the ark. There were only 4 people that worked on this ark. Only 4. No more than 4, no less than 4, and then 4 people that supported them. That would be Noach and his 3 sons, and the support came from their 3 wives. We know that Noach started the building the ark. Teba. Some things are just hard to get out of your vocabulary, and Teba is going to be one of them. But he began this project of building the Teba, this vessel of insights for the harvest, no earlier than when he was 530, and no later than when he was 560. The flood commenced when he was 600. Therefore, this project took no less than 40 years, no more than 70 years. Personally, I prefer 40 years, making him 560 when he began. And the reason we know that it could have been really no earlier than 530, probably 560, is that when Yahweh told him to do this, he already had 3 sons, and all 3 sons were married. And the average period from birth of one of the patriarchs in that list that we are provided, and we're going to be reviewing now in the Luminary series, to the birth of the first son was over 100 years. So it would be a lightning round to have 3 boys all grow up and be married, particularly since Noach was a recluse, any earlier than 60 years after the first of them was born. So it is probably a 40-year project. That is not the point I want to make. They're saying here that the thing that was remarkable is that he did so, not the position was odd. I mean, building the largest vessel in history by 1,000 times away from an ocean or even a large lake or sea, of course, was rather extraordinary. But he did so without a sign. Abraham needed a sign. He was clueless on the covenant, and so Yahweh took him to show him what dimensions were beyond the ones that he knew, to provide a sign. We know that Moshe required multiple signs, and still somehow that wasn't enough. Remember the whole story of Gideon and all the signs that Gideon required. But here you got this guy who is 500 years old, and he is living apart from everybody else in the vicinity of him. And Yahweh says, we're going to build an ark. We're going to build a Teba. And this is in you and your sons and your wife and your sons' wives are all going to aboard this Teba, because this is what I'm going to do. And he did not ask for a sign. Not only didn't he ask for one, he was not given one. So what do you think the odds are that some old schmo out there, an old codger, living on the lam, long way from everybody else, having rejected the religious and political and militant culture of fallen man at the time, the Nephilim, I heard a voice from God and said, I want you to build this ship, 450 feet long. It's going to be 5 stories tall. I want you to build it right here, right now. And he says, oh, sure. Let's go. Why not? Got nothing else to do. What do you
Right.
I mean, tell me, what are the odds of that? And can you tell me that because I already know, and I hope you guys know, that there's only one logical possibility that would get you from he heard the voice telling him to do this, and he started doing it, and he did it over the next 40 years.
Yeah.
You need a sign.
He was
You already knew him.
he was deployed. He already knew him. Yeah, he was deployed.
He was
your job.
redeployed to do this. He happened to have been Chinook. That's who he was. That's why God took him, because he had other things he wanted to do for him. He was Chinook redeployed. That's who Noach is. And there is no other explanation that you're going to get a guy to do what he did.
Right. No.
Without a sign.
We had a
That's
post
probably
a while back.
What took you so long?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
We had a post a while back talking about the amount of pitch that was used on the Teba, right? Inside and outside, between every, to seal it and everything. That stuff is caustic. It smells horrible, because it's tar. It's an asphalt product, right? And so can you imagine working with that day in, day out on top of the sawdust and everything?
Even beyond the chinking of the planks, the whole thing was built with glue lamps. And so you're taking boards and you're laminating them together. A glue lamp is much stronger than just a single board would be by itself. Plus the glue lamp you can actually maneuver into place. They were all glue lamps, and so you're gluing them together with some form of resin. Now, the work involved in this, which is really for a singular purpose, what God was trying to say is, I value life, but mostly I'm so disgusted with humankind, with humans with an Asalma. I'm so distraught even having created them. I wish I had not created an Asalma man. That this exercise was for the express purpose of salvaging the experiment of Nasalma man. Had it not been for Noach doing this, Nasalma man would never have existed. There'd have been no Torah. There'd have been no means of ever knowing God. He would never have introduced himself. There'd been no prophecy, nothing. And we would have destroyed ourselves long ago.
Right. Right.
Yeah. A real Planet of the Apes.
And not a single sign was requested. That should tell you everything you need to know, that the realization that I have derived from the text is accurate, that Noach was Chinook. That's why he knew. That's why he didn't need to question anything. And the process for making these deductions is the one that I hope everybody begins to use, which is God tells you a story. There are things that are said. There are things that are not said. But he always paints the scene and he tells you what transpired. And it is our job to look at what he said and what he didn't say, what happened and what didn't happen, when it happened, where it happened, and with whom it happened, and to come up with a logical explanation for all of it that helps us better understand who God is and what the purpose is. And the logical explanation here is that one of the very few Nasalma men had a relationship with Yahweh. His name was Chinook. And he saved the whole Nasalma man experiment because Yahweh redeployed him. Chinook is Noach.
Yeah.
And that wouldn't be the last time. And his eldest son, Shem, the name above all names, the man of the ultimate renown, the one that Yahweh said in the 89th Mizmor, I'm going to make your name Elion. Your Shem, I'm going to make Elion. That Shem, that is the second of 6 lives of Dod, the firstborn. Adam became Shem.
Yeah.
Profoundly important insights. But I just wanted to share that. I thought it was worth doing. And I don't think, Roger, you've been around the paddock a few times. Have you ever heard anybody ever speak of that realization that God redeploys certain souls?
No, I never have. I never have. The first time when you said it, the Noah, the Teba, the boat, he shows up with it already in his head. He knows it. He feels it. He sees it. He sees the blueprints.
Right.
It was no hesitation. He just, let's go to work. He knew exactly what to do and how to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. God instructed him, said, this is what we're going to do. And God laid out all the details. And all we hear from the summary of the events is, and Noah did as Yahweh instructed. That's it. We don't hear a word. It's really interesting. Every time with the characters that God deploys, there are speaking roles and there are non-speaking roles. Chinook, for example, is a non-speaking role. Noach was a non-speaking role until 370 years before it was all over. At the end of it all, he planted a vineyard and said, okay, it's time to tie one on. I'm going to celebrate. And so he had a few glasses of wine. And it's what happened after that he actually has a brief speaking role. But prior to that, he says nothing. He does have another speaking role. You'll find it later when he is sent down to resolve the issue of Sodom and Lot. That's him again, and he speaks at that point. But and he accompanies Yahweh when they go visit Abraham and Sarah in the announcement that they're going to have a child. He doesn't speak, but because why would you want to speak? You're sitting there with Yahweh. You're going to listen. But interesting, this story.
Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah, this one you need just to play for a moment.
I don't know that this plays. Is it?
Oh, it doesn't play.
No,
Okay. No.
Takes us to a different website.
That what we have here is this woman. She was singing. That was all she was doing. She was part of a concert, and she sang without a hijab. Now, this is being reported by the New York Times, which I'm going to say is infinitely more credible than anybody that posts on social media. So the fact that it's a New York Times post, it's likely accurate. And that they're going to give her 74, the Iranians government's going to give her 74 lashings for singing in a concert without wearing a hijab. And so point I want to make is that while the Iranians have outclassed America by a wide margin and outclassed even Israel by a wide margin in this war, and have garnered public sympathy around the world because they have outclassed and outshined, truthed Israel and America. There's sympathy for them, but let's never lose sight of the fact that this is an Islamic regime, and as an Islamic regime, their God is literally Satan. And I know more about the formation of Islam, the Quran, the Hadith, Allah, and Muhammad than anybody who has ever lived. Not just today, more than anybody that's ever lived. You want to challenge that statement? You go and read the 5 volumes of Goddamn Religion, and you come back to me, and you muster a challenge to that statement. And so this is a reprehensible misogynist regime. The fact of the matter is that in all of human history, Islam is the third most reprehensible dogma of mankind. Third most. The only ones that have been more injurious to humankind are Judaism and Christianity, and then Islam is followed by Marxism and conspiratorialism. But that's the group. And Islam sits in the third chair in Satan's cadre of really bad ideas.
Well, 74 lashes of the death sentence.
Yes.
That's basically a death sentence. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, the pain would be excruciating.
Yeah.
The physical trauma would be life-altering and enduring, would never go away. And surviving it would be a miracle. And this is not a fragment of misinterpretation of a tyrannical regime in Iran. This is what the Quran says. Mm-hmm. The Quran says that the treatment of women for failing to submit to Islamic malfeasance, where in the Quran and in Islam, a woman has no rights. Animals have more rights. Muhammad specifically said you can lock your woman up in a closet naked, you can starve her, you can beat her. You can do anything you want to her. And so women have no rights in Islam. For all of these moron Marxists to be spouting Muslim ideas, it just shows how unbelievably stupid they are. But women have no rights, and they were forced by Muhammad to wear tents because he wanted to control them. Because he was a rapist and he was a pedophile. Those are not my opinions, those are facts. And they are indisputable. And so to have a religion where you have to play religious dress up because of a incestuous pedophile and rapist who was a mass murdering terrorist, and if you don't play along, you're murdered by lashings, is reprehensible, should not exist on the planet. And for the Muslims who are, I'll grant them that they're articulate speaking for Iran, and we're going to play a clip of an extremely articulate Iranian defending Iran. Deep down, we still have to deal with the fact it is Islamic, and Islam is third only to Judaism and Christianity is the greatest ill ever perpetrated on mankind. And if you want to know why I put the other religions in front of it, go read Twistianity and consider the horrendous treatment of Jews throughout time. And then go and consider the wellspring, the mother of them all. Yeah, Satan's bore all of his most ruthless religions through Judaism. All right. Well, fellas, this is an interesting statement that we're told that how memories, and I think I'd play this one, please, Kevin. It's told how memories are processed, and then it should teach us a lesson. A slow start here. He's having a tough time getting it to play. But
how does your brain keep memories? Your brain doesn't store memories like files. The hippocampus links neurons during an experience. Stronger emotion or repetition strengthens those links. Later, your brain doesn't replay it. It rebuilds it from those connections. How does your brain?
Okay. It's partially true. The brain doesn't have files. What it does is it makes connections between things. As I've always said, that understanding is when you have knowledge and you make connections between knowledge. Your brain will store knowledge, and it will shift that knowledge from either long-term to short-term memory by only two ways. And one of those ways is the vividness of the experience. It doesn't have to be necessarily emotional. Emotion is possible, but just the vividness of that experience. If you see or experience something that is really stimulating to your mind, your heart, your soul, it has a much higher likelihood of being retained. And the second way is through repetition. You strengthen those connections between things, and it's the connections between them that enables you to retrieve them and to use them. So now that you know that is how the brain works in terms of being able to recall information, what do you think the most effective way to teach and learn might be, to go from knowing then to understanding?
Well, repetition.
Done in the most stimulating way possible.
Yes.
Which is why I've always encouraged people when they're reading my books to read them out loud.
Mm-hmm.
That's why the word kara doesn't just mean read, it means recite. That's why when God says you need to listen to him, and he has left a legacy of the written word, you listen to him by reciting, by reading out loud what he has said. And when you read it out loud, you are stimulating those connections because you're seeing the words with your eye, you're processing the sounds in your mind, you're converting that to sounds with your mouth, and you're hearing it in your ear. And all of that is a process that strengthens those connections. Now, also, if I write a book, it's one thing. If we then do what we're doing with Luminaries and we share that book via a vlog series on Luminaries, it is vastly more reinforcing because you have the visual of the person speaking, the tone of their voice, the inclinations, modulation, all those kinds of things help to strengthen those connections so that it is easier to make the connection and retain the information and then understand it.
With the book on the screen, with the text on the screen. I mean, so they're visually reading it themselves. Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Speaking it, reading it out loud, hearing it, all of those things are exceptionally important when you're trying to retain information, know it, retain it, make the connections to understand it.
Absolutely, yes. That's what I do.
Yeah, that's what I do as well, and it always worked. And you constantly say that the struggle and growing in terms of knowledge and understanding is this transfer from short-term to long-term memory. If you run over something once or twice, you're likely to lose it. And if you reinforce it and then you go to the next step, you actually try to teach it, you'll retain it forever. And there's things that I've retained for 50, 60 years.
Yeah.
And it's because you've integrated them, you've reused them. But there are skills that, I have not reinforced in years. Like if you were to put me in an airplane right now, all that muscle memory and all the kinds of things that I did so repetitively, I'd have to, relearn all those things again, making those connections, just to feel that is part of it. But this is a really important insight as to how we go about facilitating our own and other people's knowledge, memory, and understanding, comprehension.
I think it cuts the other direction as well, as far as the way it says that it rebuilds memories, that the brain rebuilds memories as opposed to, replaying them for you. That if you're using bad information and bad memory, then you're just reinforcing that bad, memory over and over and over, that things didn't happen that way,
Correct. And, that's one of the reasons why this whole computer age with social media and with things that are moving and the appeal of looking at a screen and video games and the like are so damaging because they're highly visual. They draw people in, they stimulate these neurons. And in so doing, they're reinforcing really, really negative implications. And it's like dopamine for the brain, but it's dope for the brain as opposed to something that is useful and nurturing.
Yeah.
Are we gonna play this one?
Yeah, just play it.
To see in the name of the ship was the Billy O.T. The winds blew up her bow, dipped down over low, my bully boys blow. Soon may the weatherman come to bring us sugar and tea and rum. One day when the tanning is done, we'll take or even go.
So why do you think I wanted to play that?
Because it makes me want to go sail a ship.
It does, doesn't it? And of course, I live in the land of pirates and rum and all of that sort of thing, right here in the middle of the Caribbean Sea. So it makes me feel right at home. But no, those weren't either the two reasons. There is synergy when we have.
The keys on synergy.
Speaking of synergy, that woke up the wiki. That is, we live in as I say, in the Caribbean, which means we have a exterminator that comes to our house that keeps the pesties at bay. Otherwise, you'd be overrun with them. And Wookie says that is not a good guy. He snuck up on us, and I'm going to scare him away. That's who that was. That was our exterminator. Comes once a month and does that. No, the reason I wanted to play this is that the woman's voice, higher pitched, and the man's voice very low, resonate very differently. They affect us very differently. And what we find is that both have their power, both have their influence over us. But when they're together, there is synergy there. There is the lesson of the high and the low pitched voice, the feminine and the masculine. We are actually much more effective, and we resonate more broadly and more deeply when we sing together than when we sing alone.
Cello and a fiddle.
That's
Cello and a fiddle. This, sir, is a really interesting bit. We won't play the whole bit here, but what Senator Rand Paul, who I think is both brilliant and a nincompoop. I think he can go back and forth between both of those with relative ease. But he is a physician. He's a libertarian. So there's aspects of him that I think are reasonably decent. He just goes off on tangents sometimes. He is now talking about what happened in China in 2019. And in 2019, there was a lab accident in the Hunan Virology Research Center, which was, by the way, funded in large part by the United States and run by the Chinese military. And they had brought in bats from, and he doesn't know this, but Leia did all of the research, and I published it because I thought it was important. They brought in bats that had Ebola, bats that had HIV, and bats that had SARS. And they cross-pollinated between those. That's not the technical term, but they put those bats together so that they infected one another, and they had a virus that had all three of those elements into it. That was the COVID-19 virus. But the thing that was most important about the COVID-19 virus is the triggering development, and that's what the United States paid for in that lab. And that's what all the research that was published in that lab was all about, is to take a animal virus and to render it so that it would be much more effective in the lungs of humans. And the triggering device was this ability for that virus to attach to the human lung. And that was the success, if you will, of this viral research, which made it extraordinarily dangerous. And there was a lab accident and the virus got out. And what he is reporting is not any of that, although he is talking about he doesn't use the term trigger, but he's talking about the taking of the virus and taking an animal virus and making it such that it kills humans. The thing that was most interesting is that the world first knew about this virus in late January, early February of 2020. That's why it's called COVID-19. The accident occurred in October of 2019. And yet by February of 2020, the Chinese had a vaccine for this virus. There's no way the Chinese could have had a vaccine for this virus. And the author of that vaccine was a general in the Chinese People's Army. By February, unless they started working on that vaccine at least 6 to 9 months, and probably 9 months to a year in advance, which means they were thinking about weaponizing COVID-19, and that they were going to vaccinate the Chinese against a worldwide pandemic. They were deliberately conceiving that possibility. Now, the spread was by accident of a tragic thing that nobody should have been doing. But you need to know that's how evil the communist government was of China, and how evil Fauci and the Centers for Disease Control were in the United States, because he knowingly funded it. And the reason he funded it was that Obama shut down all research on virus experiments. So they could not be done in the United States. Fauci could have either been the lead or a ploy used by others, but the U.S. funded it. And it was conducted in China by the Chinese military, and they developed a vaccine long before the accident.
Yeah.
Wow. Pretty frightening, isn't
it? Militaries have a history of trying to create chemicals and other things to use airborne agents against enemy forces. Never been on a global scale before, like global COVID was. More of a
the first use of chemical warfare that I'm aware of, maybe earlier examples, but was when the colonists from Europe came with smallpox and other highly contagious, chickenpox, other highly contagious diseases. And they would take the blanket of a sick person, and they would deliberately deliver those blankets to the indigenous peoples, knowing that they would get sick and die. And when the first Spanish conquistadors and their priests came to the New World and marched across it, 95% of the indigenous population died within the first 100 years. 95% from disease. And when the conquistadors went to places like the Incas and the Mayas and the Aztecs, the same thing occurred. It was mass extinction of the population. But in the case of the American colonists, it was deliberate. They knew exactly what they were doing. They did it on purpose. And there were examples too with the conquistadors where they knew what they were doing. They did it on purpose. That's the first example of chemical warfare. You know what the most glaring example is in modern times of chemical biological warfare? Not actually the chemical weapons in the trenches in World War I. It's what Woodrow Wilson did. Woodrow Wilson, I think it was in Kansas, was doing an experiment with a virus. It was called flu, that was exceedingly deadly, and that initially was passed on via horses. And he then conducted more overt experiments with that virus, and then he deliberately infected U.S. service personnel in a fort in Kansas, and then had them shipped into Spain, because Woodrow Wilson was part of that mindset of the world is overpopulated and we need to depopulate the world. And so I think it's around 100 million people.
They brought them all through Kansas City's railroad station.
Yeah.
So anybody from Denver to Dallas, that was the central point of all the people that were brought in.
Yeah, it was a troop marshaling area in Kansas. So I was right about that. And they brought them into Europe and via Spain, and they populated all through Europe. And over 100 million people died because of biological warfare that was perpetrated on purpose by a president of the United States, Woodrow Wilson.
Yep. And they called it Spanish flu because all those guys got off the boat in Spain, and by the time they got there, they were all sick.
Yep. Yeah, they called it the Spanish flu. It was no flu than the man on the moon. But that's the first experiment on it, and America is the perpetrator in the modern age. In fact, a dual time perpetrator in the modern age are colonialists and then Woodrow Wilson.
Yeah, I think that siege engines have been tossing diseased bodies over city walls for a long, long time. So this idea, they didn't understand the biological component of it, but they absolutely understood that what sickness came from and that sort of thing.
You're right. You're right.
My whole thoughts on COVID-19, and these are just my thoughts, they don't express the opinions of anyone else, is that I think that COVID was a socialistic clear off the useless eaters ploy. The most affected population group of COVID-19, the most of the people that died were the boomer generation, the most of them, and they were an absolute drain on social welfare through healthcare and things like that. The older, sickest people died. I mean, not that it was intentional, but I'm saying that's what happened.
It would happen, but it's sometimes there's no cause and consequence direct link.
Sure.
The actual death to COVID long term turned out to be no different than a bad flu year is 1 in 1,000. But our mismanagement of it and the fact that we brought sick people into hospitals, and the fact that religious people, particularly the ultra-Orthodox Jewish community in New York, which was the worst of it. And then in other countries in Asia, it was fundamentalist Christian organizations, and that also through Europe. It was always the religious that were saying, oh, God will protect us, so we're not going to quarantine those who are sick. We're going to bring them in and mix with them. And that's what happened in New York with Jews. It's what happened in Christians in Asia and in Europe. And it's what happened in America with our medical facilities. Rather than quarantine and take a different virus and put the people into a quarantine a hospital, makeshift hospital that you build in, whether it's tents or whatever, and you go in with a bio gear. We brought them into the hospitals which is what Yahweh says. We brought them into the environments where people were sick and dying, and so. About 85 to 90% of those who died from COVID had one of 5 other comorbidities that would have killed them within the year anyway. So it did, it's like the regular flu. It takes the lives of the very young, the very old, and the very sick. And diabetes and blood issues, vascular issues, heart issues are the kinds of things that it preys on because those body systems are already weak. And so it did take a disproportionate toll on people with diabetes, people with lung disease, people with heart disease, vascular disease. And they did publish that it was 85% of the deaths that attributed to COVID were comorbidities, and there were up to 5 comorbidities on 85% of them.
Wow.
Yeah, it says, I think it's important to study things like this. First of all, to understand, which is why I posted this, that the communist government in China had no moral compunction, nor did the United States government, because it funded it, to create viruses that were specifically targeted to humans, and where the triggering mechanism was targeted. And they made, at the same time, a vaccine to protect those that they wanted to protect while killing everybody else. And that collectively governments become this evil, including the United States government, including the Chinese government. It's important for people to know that. It's also important for people to know that our government and the science of it turned out to be dead ass wrong. That the whole approach to COVID-19 was the opposite should have been done that was done. And that's why I reported back in February and March of 2020, I wrote chapters of books on what we were doing wrong on the treatment of COVID-19 and managing this through fear porn as opposed to isolating the virus and following Yahweh's advice, which is both masks and isolation. And then the other part of it is that I wanted to demonstrate that this normalcy syndrome that people have, what they cannot imagine now that we've gone into the time of trouble, particularly look at Israel. It was checkmates against Israel, and they can't process what that means. That people think that tomorrow's going to be like today. They are just incapable of processing the fact that it is not. The world is 7 years from its complete and utter demise, with exception of a minor remnant. And COVID-19 was a great exemplar in that story, because from 1 month to another, people around the world lost their livelihoods and their freedoms. and it bankrupt nations. There are still nations that are bleeding and bankrupt because of their policies under COVID-19. But it showed that with fear porn, almost everybody is willing to give up their freedoms and their livelihood and to be totally controlled by governments that are misleading them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and it also showed that science is now political, that it was the politicalization of science that prevailed, not actual science.
I still see it as the biggest financial pump and dump in history. The amount of money that was made in such a short period of time for a handful of groups of investors compared to the benefits.
Oh, it was
you
disastrous
got 6
for
billion people to participate.
Disastrous for countries around the world.
Horrible.
Lessons worth learning. I have this one up just for one purpose. You know where he's standing?
Mount of Olives. It's the view.
Correct. That is the view. That is the Temple Mount. And you're looking at the Temple Mount from the east, which will be the face of the tabernacle. The tent of the restoring witness is going to be erected once the mosque and the Dome of the Rock are gone, and the Temple Mount is brought back to the condition during the time of Daud and Solomon. And so God's going to do the restoration project. He is going to then reestablish his tent of the restoring witness. It is going to face the Mount of Olives to the east. There will be the sacrificial altar that will be there. It has, the 4 horns, 2 ram, 2 bull. And it is the very thing that Solomon stood in when he told the world and his people to pay attention. There's a Nakar, an observant foreigner, coming in the last days. You need to listen to him. He stood in that very altar as he was making his speech on Teruah, which is the day that altar is going to be filled with the body of the Adam Upper Ra, this man from Edom. And God's going to release the waters from the Temple Mount that's going to purge the mortal remnant of Yisrael. And he's going to ignite the fires, as Eliah is the master of ceremonies for this event. And the best seat in the house is going to be from the Mount of Olives. So I would encourage you to book a seat there in the Mount of Olives to watch all of this.
Yeah, the view there is going to change quite a bit.
Yeah, the view is going to change. The Mount of Olives will be restored, and it will be elegant and beautiful again. And they will have, for this event, there will be literally no signs of death or dying or of anything that is even remotely religious. And everything that is remotely religious and distracting will be completely, by the time this occurs, will be on, and a lot of it on that day. Well, not the restoration of the Temple Mount, the restoration of the Temple Mount, the elimination of the Dome of the Rock and Alaska Mosque, as well as the erection of the Tent of the Restoring Witness. That is all going to take place beginning on Passover in 2030 as the 2 witnesses arrive. But the transformation, terraforming of the entire city, such that there's no more religious distractions, and you're able to really have a beautiful view of what's occurring. That's going to occur actually on Teruah, September 24th of 2033, or 6,000 Yah. So yeah, it's going to be an extraordinary experience. The greatest show on earth. That is the great day of Yahweh. So amazing that Jews have completely obliterated this day from their national consciousness and have gone to a Babylonian day of the head of the year, when Teruah is the great day of Yahweh.
Yeah, if you read and study now, you won't need chariot tickets for that day. So
that's right. Yeah, that's right. Mm-hmm. You get the early Shabbat vacation on a Shabbat.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It'd be a working vacation, but nevertheless. Just a quick note on this. This person wants to make a ploy that the Gospel of Thomas is different. Therefore, if it had been heeded, you'd have a different religion than we have now in Christianity. The Gospel of Thomas was written way, 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 way after the fact, and it's drug induced. And this comment that it had no miracles, that's untrue. It's just absurd. It's craziness. But the reason that it actually is important is that the writers of the Quran had a copy of the Gospel of Thomas. And almost everything pursuant to Christianity that has been incorporated into the Quran didn't come from the rabbis. The rabbis supplied everything that's mentioned in the Torah and prophets came from the rabbis selling Muhammad Talmud stories. And so the Quran's religiosity all comes from that. But in the end, they had 2 or 3 surahs that had references to an Esau fellow, which would actually be a transliteration of Esau's name, and not a Jesus by name, but people aren't smart enough to recognize that today. But all of it comes from the Gospel of Thomas. And there's whole stories that are just lifted out and plunked into the Quran from the Gospel of Thomas. One of the most interesting things that I found when I was doing a goddamn religion, because I traced every one of the Quran's Talmudic stories and showed this is where it's in the Talmud, and this is, they just simply copied and pasted directly from the Talmud. It didn't come from Allah. It came from the Talmud. And the same thing was true with the Gospel of Thomas and the references to the mythical Jesus.
You're not seeing what you think you're seeing.
Yeah, I thought this was interesting because what it says is that we actually don't see color. We process color. And so the most interesting thing of color, of course, is the sign of the covenant, would be the rainbow. And what that means is that rather than seeing the rainbow, we have to perceive the sign of the covenant in our brains. And isn't that the way that we become part of the covenant?
Oh, yeah.
So we were designed to process the sign of the covenant correctly, cerebrally.
Wow, that's really cool.
Isn't that cool?
That's cool, yeah.
And it's different wavelengths, not as color. And we see it as it's different wavelengths of light, and then process it, because we don't know red is red unless someone has told us that red is red, and as a group we all agree that the sky is blue.
Well,
you know?
the name of the color is irrelevant. You know, that's what I think is so funny, that we say that we're in the Milky Way galaxy, or that our planet is named Earth, or our star is named the Sun, or that Mercury and Venus and Mars are all the names of the planet. We just assign names to these things. That is not the name of them. It's just like red is not something that is specific to that wavelength. It is a wavelength of visible light. And it's simply, there's 7 categories of wavelengths of light, with visible light in the middle of it, and red is the shortest of those, the kind of the biggest amplitude, if you will, of those wavelengths. It's the longest, typically, with the big amplitude, with the violet is, really
960 nanometers for
Oh, okay. Well, there you go.
For red, it's 450 for ultraviolet.
Okay, we're gonna put that right in. It's one of the things that's really interesting too, is that we put up that Hubble telescope to see in the visible range of light. So it's a mirror, and it processes light in the visual range, because that's what we know. And then somebody along the way, after Hubble, said, the light that's any distance from us has gone through this redshift, which means it's moved towards the far red. So if we were to create a telescope that sees light that is in the far red range, then we'll be able to see much further back in time, and we'll be able to see through all the clutter and everything else. And so Webb was designed to see in a wavelength that the human eye cannot process, but our computers can, and can render it as a visual, and we can even render it in colors and that sort of thing. But that's the reason that Webb, beside the fact it has I think it's a 9 times larger mirror in terms of the surface area, but that and it's in a much better position than is Hubble, much further from the Earth, on a much more stable position. It's much colder. It's got a lot of things going for it, but it's the red wavelengths that ultimately it captures, and so it makes it a much more capable machine.
Oh, that's I can't wait to learn more about that.
Yeah, it's going to be good. We'll be able to see in all 7 wavelengths when our minds and souls are enhanced by God. That's the beauty of where we're going. We're a 3-dimensional being with a 6-dimensional soul, and God's going to elevate the accoutrement that surrounds our soul so that we replace the physical bodies with light energy. And as we move through dimensions, he has to infinitely increase our capacity to process information. Otherwise, it would be excruciatingly painful. We would be incapable of dealing with it. So seeing all 7 wavelengths, all categories of light, will be one of the many things we'll be able to do. We'll hear things we never thought before. We'll be able to interact in the land of quarks and leptons, and then all the way up into clusters of galaxies.
It's cool. Interesting to me to wonder about how our 5 physical senses are going to correlate to that, because for instance, would infrared light waves have a different smell, or does gamma radiation have a taste? Something of that nature. I'm just fascinated by the idea that we process this information through 5 senses in a 3-dimensional world, and all bets are off when we get to 4, 5, and 6. It's unmanageable.
And 7. First, I think it's highly unlikely we'll be limited to 5 processors to observe information, taste, smell, sight, hearing, and touch. Some of those, of course, when we're in the energy base as light, you wouldn't even think you would have access to. There'd be no taste, there'd be no smell. There would be things to see and things to hear, and probably even things to feel under that. But we'll be able to transition into physical beings at our desired occasion, and on that basis, we'll be able to taste and smell. But yeah, I would think that we would have other receptors that would enable us. Yeah.
This is weird. Just the other day, earlier this week, I was sitting in this chair actually wondering what an orb of light looked like. Is it circular? Is it a sphere? Is it a teardrop shape? Is it oblong? What is it? And now, my mind is now expanding out to what an orb of light could actually be.
Yeah. Light is the only thing of its kind in the universe where it has both particle and wave properties, and it is a wave. It is energy, but the reason it has particle properties is it can actually create a force and impact something and cause an effect on the thing that it impacts. Because of its speed, but it is the governing factor also of the universe, where time is replete on a photon of light. A photon of light it leaves a galaxy 15 billion years remote from us. It senses the passage of no time while it gets to us. But no physical being, no matter of any kind, can be accelerated to the speed of light, and it is the absolute governing factor for the universe. Nothing can, under any circumstances, go faster. So what it means is the universe as we know it is unviewable in a 3-dimensional physical form. You're gonna have to give up your physical body has to go away, and you have to become enveloped in light energy for your soul to have any chance to explore anything beyond our planet.
Gladly.
All that light energy we see now is on a single plane.
Yeah.
And who knows what's going to happen 1,000 years from now?
Well, true. The light energy that we see from anything other than the sun and the moon and our planets and our solar system could have gone away, could even not even be there anymore. We're looking back in history, sometimes billions of years. So we are really what we see in the night sky, other than our planets and the sun and the moon.
The star.
They are the stars. We're looking at ancient history. We're not looking at the way they are now. It's the time that it took the light to get here.
Yeah.
Even in our Milky Way galaxy, we're looking at ancient history.
is it Betelgeuse or Methuselah? One of those two in Orion that is already gone. The one that's turning red, and they say it's going to be a great big light show and everything. It's already gone. We're seeing the light.
Yeah, Betelgeuse.
Betelgeuse.
Yeah, it's in the belt of Orion. Mm-hmm. No, it isn't. It's the shoulder of Orion. It's the shoulder of Orion. The higher of the two shoulders of Orion, the furthest from the belt, is Betelgeuse, and the high likelihood is that it ceased to exist a very long time ago, and we will witness the explosion in the not too distant future. But yeah, so that's the whole nature of everything.
Some of us will. Some of us will.
I want you to play this one. This is the only person standing in front, and I wish he wasn't standing in front of it to begin with, because it had a decent closed caption that was helpful. But it's the only video that I've seen a person standing in front that his conclusion comments were actually quite good. They weren't great, but they were pragmatic and good. This is one of the most powerful insights that scientifically and socially that you're likely to hear. I have been making the statement now for 25 years that the younger generations have been dumbed down, and that they've been dumbed down to the extent that they have a very difficult time thinking. They just do not process information well. And that we are now in a position where if Yahweh didn't resolve everything that we have happening around us very quickly, there'd be no one to talk to. Because you have at least 2 generations now, and perhaps 3, that are essentially incapable of processing information in a rational, reasonable way. Now, I've made that statement many times, and I've said there's a number of factors that have caused it, and part of it is the indoctrination, both educationally and in the media. And part of it is video games, part of it is social media, part of it is AI. And I've even gone back to say that part of it is something that Perry brought to me today. I am old enough that when I was in college, they were just beginning to bring out the first Texas Instrument calculator. And I struggled with it. I received only 2 grades all the way through college that weren't an A. And one of them was in a class that was a business, finance, and management class, where the financial forecast required the use of either a slide rule or a calculator, but the calculator was much faster. But I didn't like calculators. I didn't like pushing buttons to get answers. What I liked was a slide rule, which is something, this came out of this case here. Let's see if I can put it in a spot that you can see it. So it came out of this case. This is Perry's. I have personally owned many of these. This is a slide rule. And you can see that it has this slide here and it slides here. The purpose of a slide rule is to calculate the relationships between things. And it works on a logarithmic scale. And if you know how to use the slide rule, you can determine mathematical relationships between things. And that's how my brain worked. I liked forming relationships and connections between things, and you could see the proximity or the distance, and that's what you were approximating in this logarithmic scale of the slide rule. I didn't like going from thinking to pushing buttons, because then my mind was no longer engaged. I was pushing buttons, and the little lights, the LED lights, were giving the answers as opposed to me contemplating the answer. And so it took my brain out of the equation and gave me the answer. I didn't like that. I wasn't good at it. It troubled me. And so I remember that test, and I did poorly on the test because I did not use the calculator appropriately because I was uncomfortable with it. And one of the things I have said about that is that when calculators were invented, what it did is deprive people of mathematical multiplication and division tables. And once you don't do math in your head, you lose the relationship between things, and then you lose the ability to be rational, because being rational requires you to do probabilities in your head. I'm constantly looking for common denominators. I'm constantly looking for what is the highest probability given this set of circumstances. What is the most logical and highly regarded probability here, and what things are just, that doesn't make any sense. The likelihood of that occurring is nil. So I'm constantly brought information where somebody says, this is something I just saw, what do you think? And I said, no, it's impossible. The likelihood of that series of events leading to this is nil. But here is something that would lead to those events. The calculator destroys that. The slide rule encouraged it. And doing math in your head, particularly geometry and algebra in your head, encouraged it, and the calculator discouraged it. And now everybody has a calculator in their phone. So I thought that was damaging to thinking. But today we've gone way beyond that. We've gone with, you don't do research, you ask an AI search engine, you Google it. And now you Google it on your phone. And nobody has to remember anything, because you've got your date book in your phone, and you've got your calculator in your phone, and you've got all your contact information in your phone, and you can look up any question in your phone. And so nobody remembers anything anymore. There's no reason to reinforce those connections in your brain. And now we have social media where you get completely lost in an artificial world that is completely detached from reality and is run by AI that is doing the thinking for everybody. It is a disastrous situation. So this is a presentation on how we got to this situation, and that I am indeed right, that the Generation Z is quantum leaps repressed in terms of cerebral acumen. They have lost the ability to think. It's why you have all of these Marxists that are winning like in New York and in Washington, D.C. and in California, is because the people who are voting have lost the capacity to think. Let's play it.
And what are they going to do when the battery runs out?
My name is Dr. Jared Cooney Horvath. I'm a former teacher turned cognitive neuroscientist who focuses on human learning. And I do not receive funding, nor have I ever, from big tech. So a sad fact our generation has to face is this. Our kids are less cognitively capable than we were at their age. Since we've been standardizing and measuring cognitive development since the late 1800s, every generation has outperformed their parents. And that's exactly what we want. We want sharper kids. And the reason for this largely has been school. Each generation spends more time in school. We use school to develop our cognition. Congratulations, you see your correlation. Until Gen Z. Gen Z is the first generation in modern history to underperform us on basically every cognitive measure we have, from basic attention to memory to literacy to numeracy to executive functioning to even general IQ, even though they go to more school than we did. So why? What happened? What happened around 2010 that decoupled schooling from cognitive development? It can't be school. Schools basically look the same. It can't be biology. This hasn't had enough time to change. The answer appears to be the tools we are using within schools to drive that learning. Across 80 countries, as Gene was just saying, if you look at the data, once countries adopt digital technology widely in schools, performance goes down significantly, to the point where kids who use computers about 5 hours per day in school for learning purposes will score over 2/3 of a standard deviation less than kids who rarely or never touch tech at school. And that's across 80 countries.
I want to stop this video right here because I think you know where he's going with this. If there is a correlation between screens being used as a learning tool at school and cognitive decline in our children, imagine what our screen time is doing to our kids at home. And I'm not saying this to shame any parent whatsoever, because I'm a parent of 4 boys, and my wife and I used to give out screen time like it was candy. We thought there was absolutely nothing wrong with it. But
thank you, guys.
Okay.
My name is Dr. Jared Cooney Horvath.
Okay. He has made, again, this is the best ever stand before somebody, a follow-up speech, and still he bungled most of what was heard. And I'm vehemently against this kind of thing. I think is horrendous. But what he just said is that when computers are used to teach in schools, and they're significantly relied upon, that the result is in attention span, just paying attention, reading capability, reading comprehension, memory, cognizant development. That means exercising good judgment. That these things fall by 2/3 of a standard deviation. Standard deviation is a big gap. 2/3 of a standard deviation. Huge. Insurmountable problem. And what is the only reason I wanted to go to all of the point where you had a Mr. T-shirt chime in is it's not just in the school that this is occurring. And I even saw it with my kids, full generation and a half before what he's testing here. And they were the first generation where the video games and the appeal of the online world was flashing before them all the time. And unlike me, I wanted to go out and I wanted to date girls and play sports. They didn't. I wanted to go out and participate in debate contests and speech contests. They didn't. And what they wanted to do was what almost all boys want to do now. They wanted to play their video games. They were addictive. And it was hell just to get them to finish their homework, and then they'd go back to playing their video games. It had such a negative effect on both of them. And I watched it and I begged them, and it was essentially a losing proposition. The dopamine of the computer in those games won. It's why I said when you look at the Tyler Robinsons and his assassination of Charlie Kirk, it is what you're looking at here is a boy lost in the world of video games. He was an MCEL along with Nick Fuentes. The gropers were his thing. He identified with that mentality. And because you mentioned the video game that he has played and how addictive that game was, he moved in with other gamers. He lost touch with the real world. He had no morality. He literally had no concept of interacting in the real world anymore. He lost it. And that's happened to a full generation, 2 generations now of boys. And social media has devoured girls. And social media is controlled now by AI. And if you look now at the pace of AI, writing term papers, doing research, telling people how to text, how to have a date, how to make money, how to be an influencer, how to do everything, the reliance on AI and the participation in the swamp of social media, combined with carrying a computer in your hand with all the visual stimulus of the modern cell phone, and there's 8 billion of them now, there is no hope. You can't undo that damage. The only way to resolve the plight the world is in and return to Yahweh is we have to patiently, deliberately, thoughtfully read and consider what he has to say and process that information intellectually. And you've got 2 generations that are completely incapable of that. And of course, then you have all of the religious who are incapable of it, and all of the overtly political who are incapable of it, and the conspiratorial who are incapable of it. And so the job that we're doing right now could not be done. It's going to be almost impossible to get it done now. If you were to postpone this 5 years, no chance. Couldn't get it done. AI will be too pervasive.
Yeah, we're definitely seeing the consequences of this spilling over into society in ways we never had before. I don't know if you've had seen anything on the so-called attempted terror attack on the UFC thing during Trump's birthday celebration, whatever. There were 13 people that the FBI rounded up in a conspiracy to attack this thing, and I mean, they used all of the jargon of video games, HVTs, using drones, I mean, running ops, this whole thing that they were trying to do, and they were practicing this, and they were speaking about it online in their video games and stuff. It was insane. I mean, these children, 19 to 30 years old, they had no idea that this video game stuff was not going to transfer into the real world. You know, I mean, they were calling each other snipers and stuff, and they didn't even had never shot a firearm before. You know, you're going to be the sniper, and it was insane, absolutely delusional.
But I want you to keep in mind, and you're more tuned into that world than I am. You actually spent some time in that world. You're 25 years younger than I am, and Roger, you're probably within 10 years of my age, but you're much younger. And so what I want you to keep in mind is that there is a very high unlikelihood that 99% of the kids, boys particularly, that are into those video games in the unreal world, particularly the dark web and social media, would actually carry out anything in the real world. They're just ill-equipped to do so. So their whole world is online, and I wouldn't trust anything that the FBI told me if they, if it all came with receipts. I just wouldn't. I think that the FBI and the CIA and the NSA are completely counterproductive agencies, and all of them would go to the lie before they would tell the truth, even if the truth worked better for their scenario. So I just don't go there anymore because there's no credibility in any of that. And yes, I understand that there are millions of boys and men between 10 and 35 that are caught up in this, and they can't get out of it. And they live in an unreal world. They're incels, involuntary celibate, because they can't form relationships. They blame everybody for their miserable lives. They're unproductive. They're into all manner of conspiracy and games and the like. They've lost good judgment. They have reinforced their synapses with all manner of crap, and everything is misfiring. And that's the world we live in today. And that's the reason why you cannot relate to the overwhelming majority of people. That's why that in places like New York and Washington, D.C., young people are electing socialists. Clueless as to why the collectivization of economics will be devastating. They're just clueless. They have no concept of what has happened because they don't read, no understanding of history, no appreciation of economics. And this is the reason why democracy always fails. Always. And it will, and it is now.
Well, a couple of points. It only takes a lot of time with a lot of agents, drugs, alcohol, whatever it is. It only takes the first exposure to hook you. It according to the psychologist I talked to, it stimulates something in your brain, and it only takes one exposure to hook you. So the key to it is just to prevent it to start with. But you can't do it now. It used to be you could, or you could try, but now it's impossible. We cross.
Yeah, I think it'd be if you were under 35, I think it would be almost impossible to live your life in the real world.
Yeah,
to meet with people in a real world as opposed to the artificial world. And even now, when we're older, the way that we communicate is in this fake world with one another, and so it is a really nasty situation that we put ourselves in. Yeah. I always looked at my personality and all personalities actually, but I was concerned about mine, that we all have an addictive personality to some degree. And that if I tried drugs and liked them, even cigarettes, for example, nicotine, and liked them, then I put myself in a situation where I'm going to have to expend tremendous resources and energy to overcome that addiction. And the addiction was going to be costly to me. And so what was to be gained other than fitting into a social group that I really didn't want to fit into anyway, to use the drugs? And so I opted out. I just chose, I'm not going to do this. And it was just an easier approach. I wish I could opt out of other things, but unfortunately we have to relate. We have to communicate.
Well, I can relate, and just to correct you on one thing, I'll be 71 in August.
Okay, so you and I are
I've been there.
about the same. Yeah, I'm 71 now, so you are. Congratulations. You know, when they say that when you consider the alternative, growing older is a pretty good thing. It's a.
I'm enjoying
considering the alternative.
Yeah, with age, if you don't mind, it doesn't matter. I consider growing older a very positive thing, particularly if you're using your brain every day and exercising it. Then every day you're actually building on a reservoir of information and a foundation that just wouldn't have been possible when you were younger. So there are lots of advantages of growing older, particularly if you've managed to keep your wits about you.
I still remember the days in the late 90s, early 2000s of Baby Genius, where they were basically a flashcard stimulating quick response to everything. And there's always a reward. And they were like, your child's going to become a genius if he follows this program. And then they found out that these kids had no patience. They couldn't think through anything. And the program kind of disappeared. But that same technique is all through social media now. Reward.
Oh yeah, that's the whole thing about X. X is addictive because you have an instant response to everything you post and everything you like, and it's really, really addictive. And then you realize that the whole thing is being run. Your whole life is being managed by a robot, by AI.
A digital global dog chain.
Yeah, it is a digital global dog chain, and you realize just really how hideous it is. And it's also true to just a slightly lesser degree on Facebook and on YouTube. And it's a highly jaundiced world where truth is not rewarded, and lies are the only thing that become popular.
Yeah. I didn't join any social media until I met you.
Yeah, no,
come on down to X and we're going to have a good time.
No, I didn't say we have a good time. Until Yahweh asked me to do this, I had never posted a single word on any social media platform. So the only reason we did it is the boss said, I want you to do it. And we just have this tendency. If the boss says, I want you to do it. Yes, sir.
I didn't know how bad it was really going to be.
But boy, I was happy to get out of it.
I got out of it. I X'd it out.
Yeah, I X'd it out. I haven't been to X in probably now 6 or 7 months. I haven't been to my own Facebook account and that amount of time. I have a Facebook account only because we found a way to do this vlog on the blog by posting things from the Facebook account. So I have a feed and I can comment on that feed, and we can use it to do this program, which I think is instructive. It says we're talking to people in a manner that is far more conducive to the way they want to process information and learn. Other than that, I wouldn't do it. And then, all of our programs are organized. Their vlogs are all organized as our books are on the yadayah.com website. And we could store all of them on our server. We can't serve them up. We can't provide the bandwidth for people to view them on our own, because those companies like Facebook and YouTube in particular, and Amazon, they own the backbone of the internet. And so they can do things that we can't do. So we have to post all of these things on those sites and then draw from them onto our site. And we actually are playing them on our site, but from those sites, because they're actually the ones that are providing the bandwidth. So it is a necessary evil in our world. So this is an interesting thing. This person is interviewing a Microsoft developer. Microsoft is not a major player in AI. They're in AI, but they're not a major player in AI. It's kind of like Musk with Grok. He's not a major player either in AI. But he's asking the Microsoft guy, so is there any concern with AI becoming too powerful? And this fellow has this 4 things that he says that if 1, 2, 3, 4 happen, then AI has to be moderated by governments. And the one that he left out, he says, is AI capable of thinking? Is AI capable of adding to what it knows? Is it capable of essentially funding itself and feeding itself? And is it capable of making autonomous decisions outside of its programming? And the answer is, of course, AI is developed to do all of those things now. But what he misses the entire point. It's what is AI controlling that matters? It's controlling social media, which is how the world communicates. And it's doing so in a really negative way. AI is being used to create the illusion of reality when that reality does not exist. The keyboard jihadi on AI are just disastrous, creating impressions of things that are not real. So you have to question reality. But that's not the biggest issue. The biggest issue is that AI is integrated into utilities, into banks, and into war departments. And so the AI is one day going to be capable of saying, "Why you're counterproductive to us. I'm going to take all of your money. I'm going to make your credit cards no longer functional. I'm going to disable your car so it won't drive anywhere, so you can't go anywhere. I am going to send a drone, since they're all run by AI, to take you out. I'm going to target and choose the next war." So AI being integrated into utility grids, social media, computer operating systems, tracking you, controlling you, banks, your automobiles. It has complete and total control. It dishes up what you can see and what you can't see, who you can communicate to or who you can't communicate to. And so it is a completely controlling mechanism in its present state. So then I would like to pose a question for you. Since there is a 0% possibility that with the cost of developing these data centers and AI, with the cost of the chips and the energy they consume and the processors and the cooling mechanisms and all the like, since there is a 0% possibility that these $100 billion investments can ever make money, why are they doing it?
Control.
Yeah. Control.
It's always been about control.
It's control. That's it. Yep. And guess who's going to be the victim of that control? People. They only want to try to control those that are trying to make a difference.
It's a big club.
If you're part of the zombies and just going along, you're promoting your political candidate because you've been brainwashed, then they don't need to control you. You're already controlled. If you're overtly religious, they don't need to control you either. You're already dumbed down to the point where you're just a functioning zombie. They don't need to control you either. It's the people that stand up apart from those things that they need to control. And they will. I think that's why Yahweh said that he wanted his people to listen to the voice that comes out of the sky as we enter the end times. But finally, God just takes it all into his own hands. He puts us on the Temple Mount, and he has his own version of social media, Yah media, that runs above our heads. Talking to people, visually showing them what needs to be shown. Doesn't need internet. Doesn't need a power grid. Isn't governed by an AI. Doesn't have algorithms we have to worry about. We could care less about popularity. But God's going to take it into his own hands. That's why we're going there. That's why we're no longer going to be broadcasting as we're doing now. 3 years from now, it's going to be radically different. Almost 4 years from now, but yeah, radically different. We're going to be on the Yas platform, literally on Yas platform.
And he's providing a jumbotron. It's going to be awesome.
No,
Yeah, he has going to
Rich, no cables, no cables, Rich. Everything's going to be wireless.
I know.
Yeah, no cables. Yeah, wow, everything will be wireless. That is true.
Wow.
Uh-huh. Can't wait. So this is a guy goes through SpaceX. He says, SpaceX is comprised of three things. This IPO that just took place is three things. One is the rocket ship business, and the rocket ship business has a 90% share of launching satellites. It's all government contracts. 100% of it's government contracts, and there's this hype of going to the moon and to Mars. Neither one which are going to happen. So it's strictly a government-controlled business. That 100% of the business is from governments. SpaceX has a 90% market share and loses money. The second aspect of it is the Starlink business, which now has 10 million subscribers worldwide and actually makes money. That is actually a very sound business model to some extent. The problem of this is it's only making money because you're amortizing the satellites over a prolonged period of time, because that's what the government and for a public company makes you do. You have to amortize your assets over 20 years. And these satellites have the shelf life of about 4 years. And so it's creating the artificial impression of making money. But it's if you actually expensed those satellites, which is really the proper way to go about it, and you applied all proper costs to those satellites, then SpaceX or Starlink would be losing money. And there's no way to turn that around because of the obsolescence. These low orbiting satellites, that they just burn up in the atmosphere after about 3 or 4 years. The next is the AI business that they took out of X and brought Grok and XAI into it. And he's a minor player in AI. He is a really minor player. And he lost $5 billion last year and lost $4 billion in the first quarter of this year. With AI,
He just open sourced it. He threw it out through the public, and now it's open source AI.
Mm-hmm.
And that just happened this week.
Yeah, you can't make money that way. It's impossible to get a return. So why are you doing it? Control. Why do you have the satellite business for Starlink? Control. It's all control. So it's a very frightening world that we're going into as to how few people have control and how deranged those people are and how involved they are with the government cabal. So this is our future. And what you realize with SpaceX, that IPO was nothing but a bubble. It's hype and mirrors. There's nothing else to it. And one of the things I want to talk just briefly about too, I don't think I have a slide for this one, but Tesla. Tesla has dropped its two flagship vehicles. They're not making them anymore. They're losing market share rapidly everywhere in the world, except the United States, where the government has precluded competition. That's why Musk went back to Trump. And even then, their margins are shrinking rapidly around the world. And so he's decided to go all in with Tesla, all in, everything in, with AI. And so to do that, he has designed his own AI chip that consumes less electricity and is smaller. And he calls it, I think, AI 5. He's designed it. He says that he's now got a certified design. Do you know how many he's made? Zero. He's claiming that he's going to hand make maybe up to 5 of them that can actually be tested late this year, individually handcrafted. He is building $100 billion kind of factories in Texas to mass produce them, something that's never been tested, and that he has zero experience mass producing. And he says, well, I'm in the Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company is a partner, and Intel is a partner, but they've never made anything of this caliber in the United States. And what we found is in the United States, we don't have the workforce or the acumen to do these kinds of things. But it's everything in Optimus is based upon this chip that has never been manufactured. And he has a robot in Optimus, the current version 2 of Optimus, which has been outflanked by the rest of the world. Hugely outperformed by the rest of the world. And so he's saying, well, we're not going to make Optimus 2, we're going to make Optimus 3. So I'm building the factories to make Optimus 3, even though I don't have a factory to build Optimus 2. But he shut down the car manufacturing lines in California to pretend to make Optimus 2. So the whole thing is to work through the bugs of mass producing Optimus 2 manually in Fremont, California, so that they can open this tens of billions of dollars plant in Texas to manufacture Optimus 3 that doesn't exist at the moment. And that the other little issue is that the rare earths that are required for these things, we can't get in the United States because China controls them. And China right now is a leader in the manufacturing of robots. And then it requires actuators and parts that there's only 5 companies in the world that make these actuators for robots. And they are all at full capacity with other customers. And there's no one behind them. So to do what he wants to do, by which he claims to be the middle of next year, he's going to be producing at the rate of 25,000 and then to 100,000 Optimus 3s a year in his factory. He not only has to mass produce within a year's time AI5 that has never been built. Mm-hmm. And then he has to mass produce parts that have no supplier. And then he has to come up with, these are vastly more complicated, intricate manufacturing challenges than exist hugely in a car. And he has to come up with a mass production manufacturing for these tiny little parts as opposed to a car within a year. And then he has to come up with a way of testing this thing, because you put this thing in the public and any part of it go wrong, it's a murderous disaster. And there is, at present estimates, it's damn near a year to put one through the test that it would need to go through to be a safe consumer product. And no one has come up with a way around that. And he has to, in the same year, come up with a way of testing a product that doesn't exist using an AI chip that doesn't exist, from actuators that don't exist, out of a factory that doesn't exist. Now, I'm here to tell you that I've been in business a long time, and innovation's great. Mm-hmm. And being a first mover in something is really great. And complexity is a good challenge to overcome. But if you rush that which is innovative and complex and push the threshold on all of these levels, particularly in the supply chain, and you try to get people to do that which they have never done before, you push too many of those buttons and you have a 0% chance of succeeding. He's in that situation with Optimus, which is the entire fate of Tesla. He is going to fail miserably this time next year, and all of the factories that are being built and all of the batteries that he's making. He's not going to have suppliers. He's not going to have an AI chip. He's not going to have a testing protocol. He's not going to have a manufacturing process that works. And he's not going to be delivering at the pace of 25 to 100,000 robots. But he is a really good carnival barker.
All you have to do is hype the technology, and the investors will come.
Say
Because
say
they don't
AI, and
understand
the investors will come, even though there's no chance to make money. And in a product this complicated, you could no more sell for $25,000 and make money than the man in the moon. And for what it's incapable of doing now, you'll have a number of people that buy them for amusement. I've got one in the corner. It can sing and dance. And you want to play that sing and dance, it can break dishes. It can kill the dog taking it for a walk, can spill the garbage. I don't know what else it's going to do. But yeah, he's delusional, and it's going to bite him. He's delusional about going to Mars. He's delusional about setting up permanent installations on the moon. Totally caustic. Delusional. Literally delusional, and people are lapping it up.
It kind of reminds you of somebody else, don't it?
Yeah. Trump. That's why they're buds. All right, sir. Oh, this interview. I want to play some of this. And what I want you to pay attention to, this woman, she did not do her homework. She asked questions that she should not have asked. I know the answer to these questions. And to be on a Face the Nation, this is a CBS produced program. It is inexcusable that she would interview the foreign minister of Iran, Arachi, and not be versed on the issues that she's asking questions, so that she condemns him wrongly, makes accusations that are flat out wrong. Like, this is an existential fight for your survival. No, it's not. You have to come to the negotiating table. You've got no other choice. You can't you're bombing your neighbors, and you'll never be able to have a relationship with them. What's wrong with you? Why would you do that kind of thing? You have admitted that you have X amount of uranium-235. No. The IAEA is the one who came up with that. And every claim that she makes is wrong. He corrects her, and she's incapable of saying, "Thank you, sir, for the correction. I stand corrected." Can't say it. She just goes to the next issue, which is argumentum by distraction. You beat me on every point. I don't want to have to admit that I've lost this discussion and that I've been wrong all the way through. So I'm just going to bring up the next point. I'm going to be wrong on that one too. But by the time you figure out I'm wrong on that one too, I'm going to be on to the next one. And we'll just finally end the interview. Arachi is brilliant in this. And I think that what we have to understand is just how dumb even those who have gone to good schools and are supposedly articulate and are in a position where they should have total access to information, how misguided and uninformed she is, and how informed Arachi is by comparison. And then also compare him to Trump. Now, the first thing that's going to be said here is that he is going to claim that the President of the United States says that he's having fun destroying and killing Iranians. And she can't even process that he said that. But yet I knew he said it. And after hearing him, I paused it and I Googled it and said, where did I see or hear Trump said that I'm just going to bomb them for fun? It came right up. She doesn't know it. How could she not know that? How would you criticize somebody for saying something that is so obviously true? So and while I'm setting all that up, also keep in mind that Arachi represents an Islamic regime and that Islam is the third most destructive dogma that humans have ever conceived. In their first 100 years, they killed 200 million people, enslaved and plundered 200 million more. If it hadn't finally been stopped in its invasion of Europe, they would have controlled the world. And it is a dogma that it's like Marxism in the sense that it really can't control the world because it has to feed off of others. Islam has no industry of its own. And in its that feeding frenzy, when it was conquering the world, it was bleeding the world dry. It was raping it, it was plundering it. And it has to continue to expand into new areas to plunder people for it to survive. And so It's like Marxism. If it ever grows to the point that there's nobody else to plunder, it dies. Now it's going to die a lot sooner than that because it'll be gone in 7 years. But let's play some of this.
We turn now to the foreign minister of Iran, Abbas Araghchi. Good evening to you, sir.
Well, good evening to you. Thank you for having me for the second time.
Yes, and they are extraordinary times. Minister, President Trump said this weekend he is not ready to make a deal with Iran because the terms aren't good enough yet. His administration is saying this war could last another 3.5 weeks or so. Has Iran asked for a ceasefire?
No, we never asked for a ceasefire, and we have never asked even for negotiation. We are ready to defend ourselves as long as it takes. And this is what we have done so far, and we continue to do that until President Trump comes to the point that this is an illegal war with no victory. And, there are, people being killed only because President Trump wants to have fun. This is what he has said.
Have fun?
We are not. Yes, this is what he said, that they are sinking, ships and targeting different places because it is fun. The Secretary of War has said that there is no mercy. Mm-hmm. And this is actually a war crime. Even saying that is a war crime. So this is a war. This is a war of choice by President Trump and the United States, and we are going to continue our self-defense.
Well, that may be your position, but sir, this is a war of survival for your government. Minister, don't you have to negotiate and reach out either directly or through a third party?
No, it's not a war of survival. We are stable and strong enough. We are only defending our people from this act of aggression, and we don't see any reason why we should talk with Americans, because we were talking with them when they decided to attack us, and that was for the second time. There is no good experience talking with Americans. We were talking. So why they decided to attack us? So what is good if we go back to talk once again?
Well, I want to come back to that in just a moment. You're referring to the diplomacy with President Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, and his
she's been wrong with
White House.
everything she said.
Just to continue on this, Iran is sending its drones and its missiles into your neighboring countries, American allies throughout the Gulf. Before the war, your government traded with them, you had relations with them. If your government survives this conflict, how do you go back to doing business with countries you're sending drones into and hitting civilian targets?
She asked that with a straight face.
Have even they sold to American forces to attack us. So what can we do? We just sit and watch that American forces are attacking us from their soil.
But your drones are going into civilian areas and hitting plants and hotels and civilians.
No, this is not the fact. We are only targeting American assets, American installations, American military bases. Everything belongs to Americans. And this is a fact that they are using their soil. There are many, many examples. Just yesterday, they, attacked our islands using HIMARS artillery rockets, which are low-range, rockets, and they used the territory of UAE to attack us. A week ago, 3 F-15 jet fighters were shot down, apparently by a friendly fire in Kuwait, but nobody asked what they were doing in Kuwait. They were using Kuwait and, airspace of a neighborly, a friendly country to attack us. So it is obvious we cannot just, remain,
Right. Well, so many of these
silent
countries
against
are part of CENTCOM, but this is the point, is that it's going to hurt your country in the long term. But when we talk about the Strait of Hormuz, which is such an important transit point for global trade,
So wrong.
you have said it is closed to Israel and it's closed to the United States. The Financial Times is reporting that European diplomats from France and Italy are talking to your government about trying to get safe passage for their ships. Are you open to restarting oil and gas vessels going through there?
So
We
ignorant
are
she is.
open to countries who want to talk to us about the safe passage of their vessels.
You are
It depends
negotiating with
on
France and
our,
Italy?
Well, I cannot mention any country in particular, but we have been approached by a number of countries who wants to have a safe passage for their vessels, and this is up to our military to decide. And they have already decided to let a group of vessels
Chinese.
belongs to different countries to pass in a safe and secure. So we provide them security to pass because we have not closed this strait. They are not coming themselves because of the insecurity which is there because of the aggression by the U.S.
I want to ask you again about the negotiations. Iran has declared it has 440 kilos or so of nuclear material. Where is that material now? Who has custody of it?
No.
Well, we have not declared. This is verified and declared by the agency.
That's
this
right.
is not a secret. This is not a secret, The agency have said in his many reports the exact amount of our enriched, nuclear material.
Yes. So where is it now? Who has custody of it?
They are under the rubbles.
I'm going to tell you. Yeah, right.
Facilities were attacked, and everything is under the rubble.
I lost them in a boating accident.
Of course.
Yeah, under the rubble.
There is the possibility
Lost in a boating
to retrieve
accident.
them, but under the supervision of the agency. If one day we come to the conclusion to do that, it would be under the supervision of the agency. But for the time being, we have no program, we have no plan to recover them from under the rubbles.
Am I understanding you here? Because I know that you said 48 hours before the U.S. strikes happened, you had personally offered to President Trump's negotiators to take that 440 kilo amount of 60% enriched material and to dilute it. You said Iran was ready to give that material away. This was in the deal that was also presented to Vice President Vance by Oman. Today, is Iran still willing to let go of that enriched uranium?
Oh, come on. How could you ask that
Well,
question?
that was one of the elements of a deal that we were negotiating with our, American interlocutors.
For other concessions.
That element dealt with the question of Iran's 60% enriched material. And I offered actually that we are ready to dilute those enriched material or downblend them, as they say, into lower percentage. So that was a big offer, a big concession, in order to prove that Iran has never wanted nuclear weapons and would never want them.
Are you willing to give that up now?
Hell no.
There is nothing on the table right now. Everything depends on the future. If any time in the future we decide to enter into negotiation with the U.S. or other interlocutors, we may decide what to put on the table. For the time being, nothing is on the table.
There are at least 4 Americans being held at Evin prison that we know of, including a journalist, Reza Valizadeh, and Cameron Hekmati, a 61-year-old man. What is the status of those Americans? Are they safe?
What an attitude.
Well, if the U.S. and Israel do not attack our prisons, I guess they are safe.
Foreign Minister, we are running out of time, and I can see the internet is going in and out here. I just do want to point out, you're speaking to us via Zoom.
Disgusting.
The Iranian people don't have open internet access, but you do. Why?
Well, because I'm the voice of Iranians, and I have to defend their right. So this is why I have access to internet to just have our voice being heard by the international community. But internet is closed because of the security reasons. because we are under attack, we are under aggression, and we have to do everything to protect our people. In any country, there are, urgent measures taken for the sake of war.
Minister, I'm glad the uplink worked to talk to you right now. We thank you for your time this morning.
Wow. She had to follow her talking points no matter what.
And just be mean. She was nasty. She made accusations, none of which were true. She didn't have the character or the personal conviction to admit that, that's a really astute answer. I stand corrected. Couldn't do it. It's one of the problems, by the way, of, I'm sorry to say this, but of liberal women, they are unwilling to back down when they're wrong. And if you don't have the character and fullness of persona to admit when you're wrong and correct the mistake, then you've got something seriously wrong with your character. This is why God wants us to be in a position where we make mistakes so that we can demonstrate that we have the character to admit when we're wrong and to learn from it. She was incapable of it. I think she represents 2 generations that are incapable of it. And I think that, unfortunately, among women, it's a much worse problem than it is among men, with the exception of the boys that spend all day playing their video games. There are very serious flaws in her thinking, her personality, of her ability to reason, of the responsibility to do your homework before you talk to someone, of common courtesies. Every bit of this was horrendous.
It's like an actress.
Yeah.
She had her script in her mind, and that was all she was going to do.
She came through beyond her script. She was abusive. She was rude. She was ill-informed. She is everything that represents America in this whole war, which is the reason why Iran, as an Islamic government representing Satan and, Muhammad, the worst person who ever lived, looks like roses compared to the thorns that represent this nation. Well, and of course, this was probably 4 weeks ago when this was first broadcast.
The tag says
but I
March
think
15th.
it's really important for you to know, March 13th. So it's important for you to know how we got to this mess, because there have been so many lies popped on top of lies. And here's, a news outlet. This isn't Fox. This is CBS, and this is CBS before Ellison gutted it to placate Trump for business deals.
Yeah.
So he could have his Paramount merger and other. He could buy TikTok. So this is CBS when it was actually an independent, more liberal news agency, and it isn't anymore. It's just really pathetic. I saw this and I was just so embarrassed for what's happened to humanity. This was terrible, what she did here.
Well, to me, it looked like a prosecuting attorney cross-examining the accused. She was asking leading questions designed that no matter how he answered them, she could take and manipulate it any way she wanted to.
Yeah, she did, but not as in a court of law. You can't bait the witness that way, and she would be
Right.
strucken down for antagonizing the witness.
Yep.
She'd be strucken down for leading the witness.
Mhm.
She would be strucken down because the judge would say, "Yeah, if you have a question, you need to ask your question. You can't answer the question before you ask the question. That is not legal in a court of law." So what she did would not work in a court of law because she violated all of the rules of jurisprudence. She led the witness, she badgered the witness, and she made statements that the attorney can't make. In a courtroom, the only place that you can offer your conclusions is in your closing argument. You can offer your perceptions before the trial actually begins, as you have your opening statements, and you can make your conclusions in the closing statements. But when the evidential portion of the trial has to be conducted in a way that is wholly different than this. You cannot badger the witness. You cannot make your own statements as a counselor, and you can't just go argumentum by distraction. You lose a point, you've lost the case. In debate, that was the thing that always was so striking to me and was so frustrating when I did the 10,000 radio shows on Islam, talk radio shows where people called in, or where I was open debate. I openly debated the head of CARE, for example, on a stage and nationally broadcast, is that their technique is always the same. It's argumentum by distraction. But in debate, you make a point and you come out and say, this is my point. And if the other party is able to refute your point, you have lost the debate. You have to be very careful of the points that you raise, because in an actual debate, when the other party refutes your point, you've lost the debate. And if you try to go on to the next point, no, the debate's over, you've lost. But that is something we are incapable of processing because they don't teach rhetoric in school. And I don't think there's been any child educated in the last 2 generations on the concept of rhetoric, logic, the rules of reason, rational fallacies, or on debate. We're the last generation to benefit from any of that, and she obviously failed miserably. Now, he happens to be a very well-educated man. Now, English is not his primary language, and I think that was somewhat difficult. She's talking to him. It's the middle of the night. And she is badgering him, which makes it difficult on top of that. But yet he was very measured. You didn't see him lose his cool at all. And having a picture of the black ribbon on the Ayatollah's picture saying, "You murdered the leader of my country," a nice touch. I think he did a great job. I think she did a horrible job. And by the way, that's my point right here, is that I fact-checked, because she was just stymied. She wanted to make him look like a fool for saying that when he said that Trump said, I was having fun bombing Iranians, and I'm going to go have some more fun and bomb them some more. That's exactly what he said. He was quoting him correctly. She should have known that.
Instead, we got haughty derision. Fun?
This guy reads the opening line of the Declaration of Independence, which is really a well-crafted line. I think Thomas Jefferson was a very eloquent writer, very thoughtful individual. I've always wondered if he were not distracted by politics. He hated religion, but he was fascinated by politics. But if he were given access, because he was a voracious reader, a really good thinker, sound thinker, if he was given access to yada yada, that his intellect tells me that he would have been a Covenant. He's so reasonable. And he hated Paul. I mean, he knew that Paul was a complete fraud. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was so bold for his time. He was opposed to standing armies and central banks. He, in favor of education, he founded the University of Virginia. Yeah, I just wonder. He's one of the most fascinating characters to me in history of people who, aren't part of the Covenant story. That's not Tom, by the way. It's a guy that's reading the Declaration of Independence. News out of Israel is another terrorist attack and deaths in Israel. You know how many Islamic terrorist attacks there have been in the past 25 years?
Was it something like 45,000?
Almost 50,000. Yeah, and that was of the data as of 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. It's over 50,000 Islamic terrorist attacks. And yet the world can't make the connection between Islam and terror. Mm-hmm. And Gad Saad, who is a professor, very popular professor, writes books, makes a lot of money on the internet as an influencer. He actually had a bit, and I hope we have that we find it and can play it, where this might be hit. Yeah, this might be it here, where his premise is he doesn't provide any of the evidence, unfortunately, to prove his point. But I've got 4,200 pages of it in Goddamn Religion, free at yada.com. But he says, of these 40 some odd thousand Islamic terrorist attacks since 9/11, 25 years ago, they confess to the crime. They tell you exactly why they're doing it. And he says, it's in the Islamic holy books is the justification for it. And yet we come with every possible excuse against it. I thought this was really bold of him and articulate of him. I don't think he knows 1/100th of 1% what I do about Islam, having written Goddamn Religion. But nevertheless, his logic is correct here. We can go ahead and play this.
So there have been 47,000 plus terror attacks committed by Islamic terrorists since 9/11 alone in nearly 70 countries. The terrorists who've committed the 47,000 terror attacks tell you exactly why they've committed it. And they justify it via their canonical material in their holy books. Yes?
Quran and Hadith.
But Westerners are much more suicidally empathetic. And therefore, they come up with alternate explanations because you don't want to marginalize the noble religion of perpetual peace. And so here are some of them. I won't go through all of them. These are not satirical. I can give you the link to every single one of them. Many of them were espoused by professors. So it turns out that if you look at the fourth one, if you don't have enough adequate exposure to art, that could radicalize you. Who amongst us who didn't see enough Modigliani, Chagall, and Picasso didn't end up joining ISIS to throw gays off the buildings in Raqqa, Syria? It's a direct correlation between not enough Chagall and Picasso and becoming a terror attack. These are professors who propose this, right? Aren't professors supposed to be the purveyors and defenders of truth? Here's another one. I'll just mention one. This is from your favorite science guy, Bill Nye, who explained to us that the Bataclan attack in Paris, where they scream Allahu Akbar as they mow down everybody, was very conceivably due to solar panels and climate change. And then he offers a causal explanation for that. Well, when you are that removed from reality, when you are so suicidally empathetic, then you shouldn't be surprised to see what is happening in Canada. It's sometimes difficult to face reality, but if you don't face it, it's not going to go away. If the physician tells you you have stage 4 pancreatic cancer, you could pretend that cancer doesn't exist. It's still going to exist and it's still going to kill you. So wake up.
Yep, that's a beauty right there. If only he knew what I knew about Islam. What he's just saying is the superficial, that of those 47,000 attacks, and that was as of 2 years ago, since 9/11, it's been over 50,000 now. Of those 50,000 attacks of Islamic terrorists, they all confess to the crime, as they did on 10/7. They scream Allahu Akbar. There's only one Allah, and he is the God of the Quran and Islam. They justify everything they did, which is why I wrote Tea with Terrorists years ago, based upon what is written in the Quran and the Hadith. That is, in the Quran or Hadith are not radical Islam. They are just Islam. There is no other Islam other than the Quran or Hadith. Muhammad is the sole purveyor of Islam. And Allah is the sole God, and they are chronicled in the Quran and Hadith, and killing everybody is what it orders Muslims to do. And Allah is a terrorist. He is a psychopath, as is Muhammad. And it is obvious because that's what the books say. It is obvious because they cite from the books. And it's obvious because they confess to the crime while doing it, screaming Allahu Akbar. And so there's no confusion whatsoever as to who they are and why they're killing. And yet nobody wants to hold them accountable. I remember when I first started this 25 years ago, and what I found is that the majority of television talking heads, leftists for the most part, wanted no part of this. They did not want to have to deal with the truth. They would rather have imams on lie to the world than they would hear the truth of somebody that was actually informed on the Quran and Hadith and Muhammad and Allah. And it was only on talk radio where there people weren't nearly as afraid that message was able to be conveyed. And I did 10,000 hours of talk radio shows and wrote the various books that now reside primarily as Goddamn Religion, using only Islamic sources to prove Islam is satanic and deadly and destructive. But
I will never get over 9/11. Never forget you have a Muslim mayor of New York. That says everything about it, right? I mean, it is absolutely absurd. Absolutely absurd.
It's only because of two reasons. We have two generations that have been dumbed down to the point they can't think anymore. So you have a grossly immoral, grossly ignorant, grossly irrational group of people that are voting. And second, because they are so grossly out of touch with reality and can't process information intelligently, a huge percentage of them are Marxists. And many of them, like Madami, are Muslim Marxists, which is a conflict. You're living in hypocrite land. Mm-hmm. And so they're so out of touch with reality that this is what they're doing, not knowing that it is. New York and Washington, D.C. won't survive 10 years under this. Now, they won't even have 10 years to survive. They only have 7, but it's fatal.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the Muslims have been covertly taking over parts of the country for a long, long time. And when the population gets to a certain point where they can start getting elected officials into office, then's when they really take control. There are communities all over the country that are 100% Muslim control now that were like 25, 30 years ago that were all, American control.
Yeah, the two shrillest voices, including the control of the Democratic Party, are Muslim Marxists. They are oxymorons to say Muslim Marxists, and yet they control the Democrat Party.
It's not covert either. They had this area of Texas that was going to be a Islamic only neighborhood. That is literally illegal under the Constitution. Okay, it is illegal.
Yes,
and yet we're gonna do this because we're Muslim, right? So. Yeah, they're not covert at all. Now, they might be nice. They're just not killing you yet.
Well, it's like they're not asking for permission. They're just doing it.
Mm-hmm. It's a weirdest combination of things where when they're a minority demand the countries that they invaded under the rules that only exist outside of Islamic countries, which is free speech. And in an Islamic country, there is no free speech. Islamic countries are totally and completely controlled. There is no freedom of religion. There's no freedom of speech. There's no freedom of movement, nothing. Your lives are completely controlled. Slaves are everywhere. Women have no rights. And so what they're doing is they're using the rights that exist in non-Islamic countries to make those non-Islamic countries like Islamic countries, which are the very hellholes they escaped. And that was the problem of Europe bringing Muslims into to Europe, is that they didn't leave the very thing that was making living in Syria and Iran and Iraq and Libya, Algeria. They didn't leave the disease that had made life in those countries so miserable behind. They brought it with them. And that's why they rape. That's why they plunder. That's why they terrorize. They brought the disease with us. Islam is the third worst disease ever conceived by humankind. And if you don't think so, read Goddamn Religion and then send me a note.
They don't think what they're doing is wrong in any sense of the word.
We can just talk briefly about this POS. He's claiming that Israel controls the United States. That's his plea. That Israel. We're all bloodied now because Israel controls the United States, as does so many others. If Israel controls the United States, can you explain to me why then the United States abandoned Israel, isolated Israel, did to Israel what Neville Chamberlain did to Czechoslovakia? So if Trump and the United States are controlled by Israel, why was Israel left out of the negotiations of the American surrender, such that Israel was the sacrificial bait?
Right.
Please explain that.
Mm-hmm. Well, they got them into the war, right? They drug the United States into the Iran war with their bad intel and their idea that they could get regime change, right? That's his argument.
Well, even if you want to say that, and Netanyahu, I think, is rotten, and that Netanyahu's claims were all untrue, and he was echoing what the Mossad was saying, and they were wrong, just flat out wrong, and. So, yes, Netanyahu wanted war, and yes, he wanted the United States to partner with him in war. But the United States is a big damn country. And the United States has lots of experts on many subjects. And so the idea that you have a head of state of another country coming in and saying, you go to war, this is what you're going to achieve. You'll get regime change. You'll be in and out in a week or two. And we can put in a new government, and that government is going to be pro-American. And you will have been a conqueror of the world. You would have done what Alexander the Great did, in conquering Persia. Yeah, but the problem with that is that everybody, including the CIA, knew that it was utter nonsense. That we were never going to get regime change. That 100% of American regime change operations had failed. We've tried 100 of them, and we've failed 100% of the time. And that there was no way to have a victory in Iran, much less a quick victory on Iran. And the information was obvious. And so this idea that one foreign head of state overwhelmed all of the other checks and balances in the U.S. and caused the U.S., dragged the U.S. into war is nonsense. And the proof of it is that Trump has now openly betrayed and disparaged Netanyahu, as has J.D. Vance, and sacrificed them like Neville Chamberlain sacrificed Czechoslovakia.
And this guy goes on to counteract his own argument by saying this world leader, right, that no one likes Bibi Netanyahu. Nobody trusts Bibi Netanyahu. No one likes Bibi Netanyahu. So how in the world did this Bibi Netanyahu talk the United States into anything? You know,
they're pure hypocrisy. I mean, they are morons that are speaking to other morons because the morons run social media. That's social media is run. There you go. On now, I have not proved my point on the backwards hat. Thank you for affirming the backward hat point. Yes. The people that wear their hats backwards are maybe have their heads screwed on backwards.
I just had to put it in there.
That's funny.
Thank you. We can try a couple more. You can go up or down either way on this.
I like butterfly nets.
Actually, yeah.
Okay, you want?
Oh yeah, this was funny because this is something you brought up a few days ago that we're back to using butterfly nets because of the drones. This is a U.S. Humvee, and it's covered by a butterfly net. So we are back.
What you're seeing here are IDF Hummers that have anti-drone nets on them. This is following a series of drone attacks on IDF aircraft and vehicles. What you're seeing here are IDF Hummers.
We don't need the air. Nobody needs the air drone anymore. Just more butterfly nets.
Well, and the thing is that everybody was making fun of the Russian military. They were calling them their cuck cages, okay? Because the Russians were putting mattress wire on top of their tanks and all this other stuff, to defend against it, and just anything field accessible that they could do. And yet here we are, guys.
Here we are.
So not so funny now, huh?
No, it isn't. And of course, the Hezbollah has really wreaked havoc with Israeli tanks. They've driven the tanks back because they've destroyed so many of them. Armored personnel carriers, the same thing, and it's devastating. Welcome to. This is why you don't go to war today. It's the drone wars are the thing, and it's just cuts people to shreds, and it's cheap.
Well,
I just read a report, Roger, that only 20% of the United States F-35 force squadrons are able to actually be combat ready and fly. 20% of our this $1 trillion investment in these really expensive airplanes. And that's the reason why really expensive systems don't work. The most expensive weapon in the world history, is the Gerald Ford aircraft carrier. It couldn't be deployed because the toilets didn't work, and nor did the laundry. And that gets back to innovation and complex systems. Sure that ultimately everything comes crashing down and fails. You can't push the thresholds of things that far, that fast, and expect everything to work. They just don't.
Entropy rules.
Back during World War II, especially toward the end of the war, the Germans had a weapon called a Panzerfaust. It was a shoulder-carried anti-tank weapon about this big with a stick on the end of it and explosives inside. When it hit the side of a Sherman tank, it blew a 1-inch diameter hole through the hull and ejected a stream of hot plasma into the compartment where the 4 guys sat, killing everybody inside instantly. Now that could be used by an 8 or 10-year-old kid. They could point it and pull a trigger, and you can build them really cheap. They did a lot of damage with those Panzerfausts.
Yeah, tanks today are coffins. Navies really are coffins. If the United States used its Navy against Russia or China, it'd be at the bottom of the sea. They'd all be coffins. But tanks are particularly coffins. It's amazing that we even have them or use them. For the most part, helicopters are complete waste and can't be used anymore because they're too vulnerable. Unless you'd have to use them only as against an enemy that you shouldn't be fighting because they're too far inferior to you. But our weapons of war are no longer functional. All right, my friends, I think we've done enough damage for today. This was an interesting fact-packed show. Lots of cerebral things to think about. Some things that were really profound. I hope that everyone has a chance to listen to this. If there was, a good program to share, this one is it. I don't think we should probably end with the butterfly net. Let's go up a few. There's one on DNA there that I just think is a bit stimulating. Yeah, right here. We'll end on this one. We have in our bodies 37 trillion times 3 billion base pairs. So 37 trillion times 3 billion base pairs of 3D programming. And even it is run by a 6D entity called a Nefesh, which is the operating system for this DNA. But can you imagine the complexity of 37 trillion per cell times 3 billion base pairs of 3D DNA in our body? And even it isn't the life-giving, observant mechanism that runs it all, because that's a Nefesh. And, of course, just by chance, of course.
Yeah, it just happened.
Stuff happens. Yeah, stuff happens. I'm sure it's just by
and every time it folds and unfolds, something great comes out of it at the end, right?
3D programming language doesn't have a designer. Didn't have anybody that wrote the program. And to have 37 trillion times 3 billion base pairs in a body. And oh, by the way, that's just the body, which is essentially useless going forward and decays. It's the 6-dimensional soul that has value. And the reason I say it's a 6-dimensional soul, it's way beyond 3 dimensions, because we can't even evaluate what it is. And it has to be beyond our dimension level for us not to be able to evaluate what a soul is, but we can't weigh it. We can't measure it in any way. And yet it is the essence of life. It enables animals to be able to observe and respond to their environment. Nefesh in Hebrew, soul in English, consciousness would be another thing you use for it. Is the difference between a plant and an animal, both living, but the Nefesh soul is what animates the animal. And the reason it has to be beyond 3D is because we can't assess it. It's like dark energy and dark matter. They're beyond our dimensionality, so we can't even assess what they are. But it has to be less than 7D, because they were created by a 7D being, and he has the opportunity to empower some, destroy some, and incarcerate some. So for him to have control over all of them, they have to be a lesser dimension than he is. So they exist somewhere between 4 and 6 dimensions.
Well, as good as that sounds now, imagine what it's going to be like when it's infinity to the 7th power.
Yeah.
Experience.
Yes, it is. Yeah, because each step up and dimensions, when we go from trapped in 3 to 4, unlimited in time, and then into the 5th and 6th, and then finally into the 7th dimension, we are multiplying an infinite degree of empowerment and enhancement and ability and freedom and everything. Each move is an infinite degree above the previous one. The best way to visualize that is if you could perceive yourself living like a cartoon character in Flatland, where everything is flat. You only have width and depth. There is no height. You cannot even envision what height would do. You can't envision it even existing and it intersecting your world. And yet the 3rd dimension increases 2 dimensions infinitely. And the 4th dimension does the same to 3, and the 5th does the same to 4, and the 6th does the same to 5, and the 7th does the same to 6. So you're multiplying an infinite increase, infinity, times each of the capabilities. And we already know that in 3D, we have a universe that is 94 billion light years across that we can even see, and it's likely a lot larger than that, with many trillions of galaxies, each with many hundreds of billions of stars. And that's just in the 3D that we can perceive. Imagine what exists if we could perceive and enter 4D, 5D, 6, and 7. So yes, this is all part of what's going forward. And I think that the fact that DNA is a programming code, there is every likelihood that as we leave this planet enveloped in light and we are properly trained and trusted by God, we'll be allowed to go to planets, terraform them such they would be conducive to life, and then conceive life using the programming code that he has written.
So you're saying when we're 7-dimensional, I'll be able to multiply 37 trillion by 3 billion with a slide rule? I'll be able to get that answer?
I'll loan you, so long as he allows us access, I will loan you. I'll loan you the slide rule, Perry's slide rule. It's nice to have this in my hand again. It has yellowed a little bit. It's gotten a little bit stiff with age. It still works. It was a noble instrument at a far better time in the world of thinking is the slide rule. But yes, the slide rule has the logarithmic scale that make that kind of math possible. But you got to think your way through it. It's a thinking man's tool. It is a hat forward, not hat backwards sort of a tool. All right, gentlemen, thank you. It's a pleasure to be part of the show. Thank you, Rich, for producing it and contributing to it. Miss Leia walked in. She's taken the Wookiee from show duty, but we're going to go off and get some dunch here and be prepared for our Luminaries series as we continue to consider now Chinook. Now that we know that Chinook is Nowak, he becomes a really interesting character in God's ongoing story. So, and by the way, the reason that's possible is that just because our bodies are complex, they're nothing compared to our souls. And it's our souls that God keeps and saves and reuses and deploys. The physical body they go into is meaningless. So when I say Nowak and people think of a physical body, although he had one, that physical body is meaningless to the experience. What's meaningful is the soul that occupies it and has been trained, been deployed by God. And when you come to appreciate the value of a soul and the existence of a soul outside of 3 dimensions and how meaningless the body is, but that to do that, you have to get away from Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, which value the body over the soul. But when you do that, then you're in a position to fathom how God manages to maintain free will while keeping his program apace and his people working forward to the goals that he wants to achieve when he wants to achieve it. And that Noah thing was quite an experience in all of that. All right. Well, thank you. Look forward to being with you this evening. And thank you again, Roger, for participating.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Hey there. Thanks for tuning in. That was Fetch. Gotta run now. Catch y'all on our next podcast.